From the campus of Arkansas State University, this is Centennial Reflections.
The Centennial Moment series explores ASU history from its start as an agricultural district school to the multifaceted university it is today. I'm Richard Carvell, host for this series, and our guest today is Bob Ferralasco, who is a graduate of Arkansas State and served on the faculty for many, many years. The
37.
College of Business, 37 years. Chair of one of the departments.
Right.
There. Bob, you came to Arkansas State after World War II. You were a veteran of World War II, and you came to ASU from New Jersey.
Right.
How in the heck did you get to Arkansas?
It wasn't easy. It was probably about May of '46. The war was over, but I was still in uniform. I was in the United States Coast Guard, and our responsibility, mine, was to keep the enemy submarines from coming up the Hudson River and destroying New York City, which would have been a tragedy, of course. And I walked into this famous tavern in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, and there are 3 ex-GIs talking about going to college: Ricks, Walsh, and Lindaberry. This was a famous place for gathering because my father owned it. And they asked me, "Are you going to college?" And I said, "Yeah, but I've been turned down by every college in the state of New Jersey." They had no room whatsoever. Well, Lindaberry laughed and said, "Well, come go with us." Harold had been an air cadet during World War II here and just fell in love with Jonesboro. He just fell in love with it. Several reasons. Unfortunately, one of the reasons was that they voted the county dry, and those 3 fellows loved to drink beer. And we were going to live in Danner Hall and walk down the bottom of the hill to Johnson Avenue, where there were 2 very respectable taverns. Well, of course, when we arrived here, we found out the county was dry. We had no
Voted
car.
dry during World War II.
Yes, before all the veterans came back.
Right.
It was very unfair. So that's how I arrived.
There were a lot of veterans. You were here on the GI Bill, and there were a lot of veterans who went back to school.
Yes.
How did veterans change the face of the campus here at Arkansas State?
Well, I didn't realize it until I started teaching, when I came back to teach at Arkansas State in 1952, the difference in the freshman classes. Because in 1946, it seemed as though all of the fellows were in their 20s or 30s. Many of them were highly decorated. Several of them had played football. You know, I was a football manager in '46 under Frosty
I
England.
want to ask you about that in a minute.
And several of them had been knocked down and floating in the Pacific. So these were older fellas, very serious, very competitive in the classroom. It was really a wonderful, wonderful experience. I hated competing against them because I wasn't that bright, and I was pledging a fraternity and chasing girls. I liked girls in those days. Now I'm too old.
Okay, manager for Frosty England, one of the early football coaches at Arkansas State University. What was that like?
Oh gosh, well, he came down from University City High School, and we had a lot of problems with him because he treated a lot of these veterans as if they were high school kids. And we had transfers from Santa Clara, some of the biggest universities and colleges in the country, where these fellows had gone to school there for a year or so. The war comes, and off they go in service, and then they come back more to their home area, and that would be Arkansas. So these were veterans, you know. And Frosty had his own way of coaching. We took 9 bus trips. No one took trains in those days, or at least we didn't, or we didn't fly. We went to Peoria, Illinois, play Bradley Tech, and Cincinnati to play Xavier, Conway.
And you went by bus?
Oh, yes.
All the time?
And one of the buses, the coaches forgot to reserve Greyhound buses. So we're leaving Friday morning, Thursday afternoon. And I'm not only the football manager, but I grade all the papers for Coach England. I made an A in 5 hours under him. Not because I graded my own papers, but I made out the test too. They forgot to reserve the buses. So we ended up going to Cincinnati in 2 Jonesboro City buses, and they were horrible. I was in charge of one. This was the smoking bus. We got into a big fight on our first trip because a lot of the veterans wanted to smoke on the bus, and we had a lot of non-veterans, so we divided up. One is a smoking bus, and these fellas would take their pipes and cigars. You know, we're talking about
Serious
26,
smoking,
28,
yeah.
yes, very mature people. So we broke down about 40 miles outside of Cincinnati, and the fellow said, okay, give us some money so we can go eat. Well, unfortunately, that was one trip when they forgot to give me some money.
Uh-oh.
So we were stranded, broke, and we hitchhiked in Cincinnati, and most of the team got in around midnight, and it was quite an experience.
Well, one of the other jobs as a manager was to wake up everyone and make sure they got on the bus.
Oh, yes.
Did you ever have trouble with that?
I had a little trouble in Conway when we were playing then Arkansas State teachers. Frosty came to me and gave me the clipboard and said, okay, at a certain time, make sure you get everyone on the bus. And the ritual was to go out to the field and walk up and down the field, I don't know why, and kick the grass or something and kind of look around, get back on the bus and go back. So I'm going around knocking on the doors, and I came to this one room where there were 3 ex-Lieutenant JGs and the captain in one of the horrible outfits, and knocked on the door and said, Ferralasco, okay, fellas, come on, let's get down on the bus. Well, about that time, I heard some giggling going on, and I realized
Female
that,
giggling.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Football
okay.
players don't giggle. And one of those Lieutenant JGs knew that I was a 3rd-class petty officer, which is, you know, 1 rank above a private in the Army. And he told me what would happen to me if I stayed around very much longer. And I said, present.
On the bus.
I checked them off. And yeah, that was quite an experience.
More stories from Bob Ferralasco when we return.